Welcome everybody to the seasonal diet, eating what our ancestors ate when they ate it, like we were evolved to do. Barley, continuing our grain week with barley. We are in top grain season in our ancestral diets now in the late winter and spring. Barley has been used by humans for a very long time, like all the other wheats. It was first cultivated in the eastern Mediterranean area and Middle East about 10,000 years ago, similar to all the other grains. But there has been archaeological finds dating barley consumption to 23,000 years ago by hunter-gatherers. So early wild forms of barley were foraged for a very long time. It slowly spread out, being cultivated all over the Mediterranean, and about 4,000 years ago, it was cultivated over most of Europe and Asia, at least on the small scale. It has remained a relatively important part of ancient humans' diet for quite some time, and a few different things can be made with barley, like breads, cereals, soups, stews, that kind of thing. But for the reason you are all here, beer. Barley is one of the oldest ingredients used by humans to make alcoholic drinks. We have evidence of it being used to make beer in modern-day Iran more than 5,000 years ago. The only other food we know that was used to make alcohol that's older than that is of course grapes for wine, but barley is a very close second, and potentially mead depending on where we look in the world. As soon as we start to see written records of these things, we see barley in recipes for alcoholic drinks. We see these things coming from ancient Egypt and ancient Rome, of course, and even ancient Greece, where they used barley to make a sacred drink used for initiation rituals, which they think potentially had some other psychoactive substances and ingredients in it, but we're not sure. We also see barley further in the north of Europe, used in all kinds of traditional beer recipes. However, there was a lot more variation in beer recipes than we have in our modern day. In ancient times, we used to use all kinds of herbs and ingredients. Yes, the primary ingredient might have been barley and hops, but in the 1500s, something called the Reinheitsgebot came along. And that was a law, and what it did was prohibiting all ingredients to be used for making beer. Prohibit all ingredients except for water, hops, and barley. Only 3 ingredients, and crazy enough, we still have this regulation and law in effect today in most countries, 500 years later. So absolutely, barley has been used for a long time. In the north of Europe, probably more commonly for making beer than anything else. But again, the beers back then were much more diverse than the ones we have today. Barley is usually in top season in the mid to late summer, and that's when it's harvested. But like all the other grains, it has a very long shelf life and can be stored for at least a year in the right conditions. So it is something our ancestors would have had access to all year round. We see a lot of late winter and spring traditional recipes though with barley for food when our ancestors would have needed it most. But of course they enjoyed their alcohol year round. I definitely do too, but I have to be completely honest, this is the least Northern European thing about me, but I hate beer, I can't stand it. I prefer rye whiskey or vodka made from wheat. I actually almost never eat any barley, but if I do, it's in some sort of bread or stew, which I have eaten before. But let us know, do you guys have any recipes, any traditional things you do with barley from your ancestral homelands? Let us all know.